Now, not content with cycling miles and miles and miles through the Alps and enduring saddle sores, no doubt lycra burn and God knows what else, the competitors in the Tour de France decided this year that starting their journey going uphill and down dale in Yorkshire would make the experience that much more special. The opening ceremony was earlier there this evening, and Steve Smith, no stranger to cycling shorts himself, went earlier this week to have a go at the course.
The excitement up there was amazing. People are getting incredibly into it. Really every single house on the route has a sort of bike stuck to the fence and banners everywhere and pork pies made in the shapes of Bradley Wiggins' sideburns. That's just a lie, but that sort of thing.
I'd love to try one of those. Yes, everyone's getting in the mood for the Tour de France in Yorkshire, or Bikes and Tykes for short. On the face of it, it's a curious setup. A great national event of France coming to Yorkshire. One's noted for its cuisine and people who can be a bit chauvinist, and the other's France. We've only just met. This is kind of intimate, but have you got that on the right way round?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
okay. What is it exactly?
Just my shorts, bib shorts. So just sort of fastens everything together.
Now, I couldn't help noticing you earlier applying some product to your legs.
Yeah.
Is that Go Faster oil or?
Just embrication, just to sort of like loosen your legs off before the start, yeah.
So what's happened to cycling in the past few years? Are we right in thinking that it's enjoyed something of a boom?
Yeah, it's exploded, I would say. We started our club 2 years ago and it's grown like topsy. It's like 170 members now in 2 years and people are queuing up to join. It's really good news.
My young lad, he's started racing, he's been racing for the last year or so, and a bike of £300, something like that, has got him into racing, and it'll last him 2 or 3 years. So, you know, yeah, maybe not quite £4.99 for a football, but it's not the most expensive sport in the world either.
We've been on the lookout for kind of lycra widows whose husbands spend their weekends packed into tight-fitting clothing and cycling.
No, that's definitely not my husband, definitely not.
Chance to be a fine thing.
Yes.
For the second successive year, Robinson wins a stage in the Tour de France, something no British rider has ever done before.
It's almost 60 years since Brian Robinson became the first Brit to finish the Tour. Now 83, he still gets on his bike, though nowadays he fires up an electric motor for the steep bits around his home outside Huddersfield.
It isn't a poor man's sport any longer. I mean, when I came into it, you bought a second-hand bike or you managed to get a new frame and put the second-hand bits on it. And you just had the one bike, really. And when you went to race, you took the mudguards off, raced, and then put the mudguards back on again and came home. So, yes, it's a lot different. And I go into my grandson's garage now, and he's a bike for this day, a bike for that day. It's absolutely amazing, and clothing galore.
They're weird things, they're a real struggle to get into.
Yeah. And that clothing's worth millions.
This is called a chamois. It's named after the traditional chamois.
Not only the one-piece racer's outfit with integral codpiece, but also this cunningly adapted work jacket for the cyclist on his way to a meeting. Cars can see you with that.
Because of the visibility, exactly. And then.
So is this firm catering to the so-called mammals, middle-aged men in lycra?
It's really interesting because it's been very useful to compartmentalise a new group of people coming to the sport. But I think it's viewed in isolation, it's a little bit reductive because cycling certainly in the UK has got a history going back 150 years. You know, it started as a mode of transportation that was then kind of popularised. It just feels like we've had since the early 90s almost a refocus on the athletic side of the sports.
Writer Tim Moore's kitted out like an old-time continental racer. Bottles for water and red wine. Hello, Tim.
Hello.
Handsome beast. I'm talking about the bike, of course.
Of course you are.
But underneath that merino wool jersey, he's all mammal.
Well, I mean, it could be a lot worse. In terms of midlife crises, it could be, I mean, the more traditional expression of a midlife crisis would be probably not very good for your health and probably make you look a lot more silly. So I think
You mean a red sports car and a younger wife and that kind of thing?
very much those sorts of things. Dyeing the hair, adopting kind of idiotic styles in fashion, as opposed to this, clearly.
On the eve of the Tour coming to Yorkshire, it's a departure for the old race, and for onlookers of a certain age, a big moment in their life cycle.
Steve Smith not in Lycra. Well, Jules Walker is a guest presenter of the cycle show, who otherwise known as Lady Velo. And Daniel Knowles is from The Economist, has written about the sociology behind the cycling boom. Welcome to you both. We are seeing something of a boom or a buzz, whatever you want to call it, around cycling. What's it really all about? And has it got a bit of an image problem if it's all middle-aged Lycra louts?
There is this real thing in British cycling, and there has been this growth in the number of people cycling, but if you sort of dig down into it, it's still very much white, middle-class, male men, kind of quite well off, age 40 or so. And, you know, if you look at where people cycle, it's where they live. It's places like Cambridge and Hackney, and, you know, that I think adds to a sort of, it does add to an image problem.
And is it a problem? Because, I mean, some people, even, you know, myself cycling in London, you sometimes see people behaving pretty badly. I mean, sort of boorish people cutting other people up, scaring grannies on pavements. Is it, has the culture become too aggressive?
Well, you see a lot of people in the morning. I mean, I cycle to work, and you see a lot of people kind of, you know, 20-minute cycle to work through in full Lycra gear, cycling shoes on, just every traffic light is a sort of pit stop, you know, charge away, and it's, yeah, I think it's a bit unsettling for sort of people who just want to, you know, just cycle to work or cycle around. But
Jules, is that fair? I know you're very fond of your bike.
I am very fond of my bike. I don't actually think that's a fair representation of the cycling demographic and the cycling culture in Britain at all. I mean, I can appreciate what you're saying about so-called mammals, middle-aged men in Lycra, and that it may come across that it is, you know, very middle-class white men that are cycling. I mean, I'd be the antithesis of that as well, with the kind of cycling that I do, you know, the way how I cycle as well. But at the other side of that, I've also just got a road bike as well, so I'm getting into road cycling. But it's such a complex mix. It's such a diverse mix of cyclists within Britain. There's so many different scenes as well. So I can appreciate what you're saying about it being slightly aggressive.
I mean, I think this slightly is the... you know, I kind of agree on some parts, but the problem is that we see it as a cycling scene. People say, "Oh, I'm a cyclist." It's a, you know, it's a self-definition thing.
I mean,
in a lot of other countries, in the countries that, you know, we ought to emulate, kind of Holland and Denmark, places where a lot of people cycle. Cycling isn't something that you are; it's just something that you do. It's like, you know, it's like, you know, you wouldn't say that you're a train commuter necessarily if you get the train to work. And we have this thing with cycling. I mean, I am all for recreational cycling, but it kind of crowds out a little bit the, you know, just getting around aspect of cycling.
If there is, Jules, a cycling scene, and, you know, whether that's East London or whether it's Charlton and Manchester or Cambridge, it is sort of about something else, isn't it? It's about making a personal statement, not just getting from A to B. Isn't that a bit weird?
I wouldn't say that it's weird at all. I mean, I don't want it to seem like that there has to be, you know, different sets, different kinds of scenes, because that feels like it becomes quite divisive, like talking about cycling in that sense that, you know, you're the roadie or you're the MTB or you're the commuter.
What's an MTB? Forgive me.
Mountain bike.
Oh.
So
we all learned something here tonight.
Yeah. But, you know, it should be something that's inclusive, and we should be encouraging people to cycle and embracing it. So, you know, my personal opinion is that cycling is really growing in Britain, and you've got, you know, the Olympic legacy that would have encouraged people. It's motivational, it's aspirational to see that.
But is it being captured, Daniel, by the middle-aged man in Lycra spending, you know, something more than £1,000 on a bike? Is it like instead of taking up golf?
One thing that's difficult is, it is a bit like golf. If you want to buy a bicycle in this country, that it's surprisingly difficult to get hold of a kind of a decent second-hand bike sometimes. I mean, there are places, I think, where we have a cycling culture that really works. Cambridge is one of these places, but it's kind of a lot of the country, it is this niche thing, and it's expensive, and it's, yeah.
But why would you say that it's difficult to get a hold of a decent second-hand bike? Or, you know, there are avenues available to you even if you wanted to get a decent bike that wasn't going to cost you a fortune. My first bike that I got through the Cycle to Work scheme, so...
OK, Jules and Daniel, are you both going to cycle home by bike?
I am, actually, yeah.
OK, all right, well, thank you both very much indeed for coming in.